The vast halls of the Aurelian palace stretched endlessly, carved from stone that shimmered with hues of violet and silver. The ceilings arched high above like the inside of a cathedral, filled with soft streams of glowing crystal light. Servants moved quietly along the polished floors, their heads bowed low, for the royal family of Aurelia commanded both respect and fear from every being who entered. It was here, in this place of grandeur, that humanity's first official meeting with the Aurelians was about to take place. Captain Elias Morgan walked slowly through the grand entrance, flanked by two of his aides, though he hardly noticed them. His boots echoed sharply against the floor, a sound that seemed far too loud in the silent chamber. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of strange flowers placed in crystal vases, flowers that seemed almost alive, shifting ever so slightly, as though breathing. Elias had seen much in his career as a diplomat and soldier, but nothing quite like this. Humanity had ventured into space only a century earlier, carving alliances with smaller civilizations, proving their worth through trade, defense, and stubborn resilience. But the Aurelians, they were different. Old, powerful, and proud. Many said they were the closest thing to galactic royalty the stars had ever seen. And today, Elias was chosen to stand before them. The chamber doors opened with a low hum, revealing the royal court. Rows of alien nobles stood along the walls, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and suspicion. They were tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered faintly in shades of pale gold and blue. Their movements were graceful, almost too precise, as though every gesture had been practiced for centuries. At the far end of the chamber sat the Aurelian king, his figure draped in robes of silver and deep crimson. Beside him, slightly lower, on a throne of pale crystal, sat his daughter, Princess Liara. She was young, perhaps the equivalent of a human in her early 20s, though her features held an otherworldly beauty that made her seem timeless. Her skin glowed faintly in soft lavender tones, her hair like strands of liquid silver that caught the light. Yet it was her eyes that drew Elias's attention. Large, luminous, and filled with a quiet intelligence, they seemed to pierce through the room itself. Elias slowed his steps, then bowed formally as human custom required when meeting royalty. His aides followed his lead, but when he rose again, he did something no one in the chamber expected. He looked directly at the princess. For a long moment, the room seemed frozen. Alien nobles shifted uncomfortably. Among the Aurelians, it was considered improper, almost insulting for commoners or foreigners to hold their gaze upon royal blood. Most who stood in Liara's presence kept their eyes lowered, speaking only when spoken to. But Captain Elias did not look away. His gaze was steady, calm, and respectful, but unflinching. Liara felt something stir within her chest, something unfamiliar. She had been raised in endless ceremony, surrounded by people who bowed, flattered, and feared her title. No one dared meet her eyes. No one dared treat her as anything other than a symbol of power. Yet here stood a human, bold enough, or foolish enough, to look at her as if she were simply a person. Her lips parted before she could stop herself. The words escaped, soft but clear, carrying across the silent court. "Why are you looking at me so deeply, human?" The question rippled through the chamber like a sudden gust of wind. Nobles exchanged sharp glances, whispers spreading among them. The king's expression darkened slightly, though he did not yet speak. Elias, however, did not flinch. He inclined his head respectfully, then answered in a calm voice. "Because your eyes asked me to. They are not just the eyes of a princess, but the eyes of someone who carries questions within them. I thought it would be wrong to look away." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Liara blinked, taken aback. She had expected fear, excuses, or silence. Instead, she received honesty. She felt warmth rising in her chest, an unfamiliar sensation she quickly tried to bury. The king cleared his throat, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "Human representative," he said. "You stand in our hall to speak of alliances, not riddles. Do not mistake our patience for weakness." Elias bowed again, showing due respect. "Of course, Your Majesty. My purpose here is clear. but I believe honesty is the first step to any true alliance. The court session continued, though the weight of that moment lingered. Elias spoke on behalf of Earth, offering cooperation in trade and defense. He explained humanity's growing presence among the stars, their willingness to work alongside old civilizations rather than against them. His words were measured, carefully chosen, yet they carried a conviction that none could miss. Liara listened closely. She found herself studying him far more than she had planned. Unlike most emissaries who drowned in flattery or fear, Elias spoke plainly, his voice steady, his eyes unwavering. When the session ended, the nobles dispersed with quiet murmurs. The king rose, his robes flowing like liquid fire as he departed, through a hidden corridor. But Liara remained seated for a moment longer, her gaze still fixed upon the human captain. As he turned to leave, she spoke again, her voice low, almost hesitant. "Captain Morgan," she called. He paused, glancing back at her. Liara tilted her head slightly, curiosity sparking in her luminous eyes. "You did not look away, even when you should have. Are all humans like you?" Elias allowed a small, thoughtful smile. "No, princess. Some are braver, some are wiser, some are weaker. But most will always look someone in the eye, because that is how we see the truth." Her heart skipped at the simplicity of the answer. She wanted to ask more, but already her attendants were urging her to rise, reminding her of her duties. With a final glance, she turned away, yet her mind remained unsettled. That night, Liara stood by her balcony, the alien moons casting silver light across her chambers. She tried to push away the memory of the human's gaze, but it returned again, and again she whispered softly to herself, almost embarrassed by the thought, "Why did it feel different?" For the first time in her life, the Princess of Aurelia felt something she could not explain, an intrigue born not from fear nor from duty, but from the unshakable steadiness of a human's eyes. And though she did not know it yet, that single moment would change the fate of both their worlds forever. The palace was quiet that evening, yet Princess Liara could not find peace. She walked slowly through her private gardens, her silver gown flowing behind her. The moonlight danced across the leaves of glowing plants, casting pale light upon the smooth stone paths. Normally, these gardens calmed her. They were a place of silence, of order, of control. But tonight her thoughts were restless. She could still see the human's eyes, clear, steady, bold. They had not trembled, not turned away, not lowered themselves before her crown. It was not arrogance, not disrespect, it was something else. She tried to explain it to herself. It was honesty, directness, a courage that was different from pride. And it bothered her. For 20 years she had been raised as a princess. She had been taught to expect fear, loyalty, and admiration. She had been taught that the gaze of others should never meet her own. Her people bowed, her servants obeyed, the nobles flattered. She had been told this was the natural order of things. But Elias Morgan, the human, he had not followed that order. Liara stopped by a pond of crystal-clear water, its surface reflecting the twin moons above. She stared at her own reflection, her luminous eyes shimmering like stars. Her voice was quiet, almost like a whisper to herself. Why did he look at me that way? The next day, the human delegation was given quarters within the palace walls. Though smaller than the royal chambers, the rooms were still lavish, decorated with Aurelian art and crystal furniture. Elias had been awake since dawn, reading through documents and preparing for further negotiations. A knock came at the door. When mind, he opened it. He was surprised to see Princess Liara standing there, flanked by only one guard. Her presence filled the hallway, her silver hair catching the morning light. "Princess," Elias said, bowing slightly. "I did not expect a visit." Liara studied him for a long moment. Her voice was calm, but her eyes revealed her curiosity. "You are different from what I was told of humans." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And what were you told?" That your kind is reckless, impulsive, that you rush into danger without thought, that you are untamed. Elias gave a small smile. Some of that may be true, but it is only part of who we are. We are also builders, dreamers, and survivors. We are not so easily defined. Liara tilted her head. Then tell me, Captain, why did you not lower your eyes in the court? Elias's answer was simple, because I wanted you to see that I meant every word I said. Where I come from, truth is found in the eyes. To look away would have been dishonest. Liara felt her chest tighten at his words. For a moment she said nothing, then finally asked, Do you speak this way to all princesses? Elias chuckled softly. You are the first alien princess I have ever spoken to, so I suppose the answer is no. Her guard shifted uncomfortably, but Liara lifted a hand to silence him. She felt no danger, only intrigue. Over the following days, Liara found herself drawn to the human. She told herself it was only curiosity, a need to understand this strange creature who had entered her father's court. Yet each time she saw him, she asked more questions, and each time his answers left her unsettled in ways she could not explain. One afternoon she visited him. The palace of Aurelia was alive with whispers. The grand halls, once filled with calm order, now hummed with unease. Nobles spoke behind closed doors, their voices sharp with worry. The human envoy had been present for only a short time, yet already he had unsettled the balance of the court. Some nobles said the human captain was bold in a way that was dangerous. Others said his influence over Princess Liara was growing, and if left unchecked, it could change the very heart of the royal house. In a chamber filled with flickering crystal light, 3 senior nobles gathered. Their robes shimmered as they leaned close, speaking in hushed voices. This cannot continue, one whispered. The princess meets the human too often. She listens to his words as if they carry the wisdom of ages. Humans are reckless, another muttered. They do not respect tradition. Already he looks into the princess's eyes as if he were her equal. What next? Will he challenge our king? The eldest noble frowned deeply. If the princess continues down this path, she may bring shame to the crown. We must act before the human's influence spreads. Their plan was not yet clear, but their intentions were. The shadows of conflict had begun to form. Meanwhile, Liara walked through the palace gardens again, her thoughts heavy. She had spoken with Elias nearly every day since their first meeting, and each conversation left her more unsettled. He spoke with honesty, not fear. He carried himself with confidence, not arrogance. She remembered the way he described Earth's storms, how lightning tore across the skies, how humans stood against nature's fury and learned to endure. She remembered his words about truth, about looking someone in the eye. And she remembered how her own nobles looked at her, with calculation, with fear of offense, but never with honesty. Liara sat by the pond of crystal-clear water, staring at her reflection. She whispered softly, Why do I seek him out? What am I hoping to find? The answer did not come. That afternoon, Elias was invited to a council meeting with the king and the royal advisors. He entered the chamber with calm steps, though he could feel the weight of dozens of eyes upon him. King Arian, Liara's father, sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Around him the nobles waited, their gazes sharp and suspicious. Captain Morgan, the king began, today we will hear your proposals. You speak for Earth. Tell us what you seek. Elias stood tall. Your Majesty, Earth seeks friendship and cooperation. We wish to trade knowledge, resources, and protection. Humanity is not here to command nor to bow. We are here to stand beside you. A murmur spread among the nobles. One of them spoke sharply. Bold words, human, but what can your small world offer us? We have stood for centuries while your kind crawled upon the dirt of a single planet. Elias did not flinch. That is true. We are young compared to you, but in our short time among the stars we have faced trials many civilizations would not survive. We fought wars, yes, but we also built peace. We fell, But we rose again. What we offer is not only trade, we offer the strength of a people who never stop moving forward. The room grew silent. Even the king's stern eyes narrowed with interest, but the nobles were not convinced. Or perhaps, another said coldly, you simply bring your chaos with you. Your kind is known for its violence, its unpredictability. Perhaps it would be safer to keep humanity at a distance. Elias met his gaze steadily. If humanity wished only for war, we would not stand here today. We would not seek alliance. We seek to build, not destroy. But if danger comes, we will not flee. We will stand, even if we stand alone. The king raised a hand, silencing further argument. His deep voice echoed through the chamber. Enough. We will consider your words, Captain Morgan. You are dismissed. Elias bowed respectfully, then turned to leave. As he passed, he caught sight of Princess Liara at the far side of the room. Her eyes met his, filled with quiet admiration. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Then he walked on. Later that evening, Liara found him again on the balcony of his quarters. You spoke boldly today, she said softly. Elias shrugged. I only spoke the truth. The nobles are not pleased, she warned. They see your words as a threat to their traditions. Elias looked out over the glowing city. Then perhaps their traditions are afraid of change. Liara tilted her head. And you are not afraid of change? He turned to her with a faint smile. Change is part of being human. We learn, we adapt, we grow. If we do not change, we wither. His words struck her deeply. She thought of her own people, so proud, so steady yet unmoving for centuries. Was that strength, or was it weakness? But as their connection grew, so too did the danger. The three nobles who had whispered, in secret, now set their plans in motion. One evening, as Elias walked through the palace corridors, he was stopped by a group of guards. Captain Morgan, one said, the council has summoned you. Elias frowned, but followed. He was led to a small chamber, far from the main halls. The doors closed behind him, and he found himself alone with the three nobles. You speak boldly, human, the eldest said, his voice like ice. Too boldly. You look at our princess as if she were no different from you. You must learn your place. Elias stood calm, though he sensed the threat in their tone. I have never disrespected your princess. I treat her with the same honesty I would give anyone. The noble stepped closer. That is the problem. She is not anyone. She is the crown of Aurelia. You will keep your distance, or you will regret it. Elias met his gaze without flinching. If your crown is so fragile that it fears honesty, then perhaps it is not as strong as you believe. The nobles bristled with anger, but before they could reply, the chamber doors opened. Princess Liara stood there. Her eyes were sharp, her voice steady. What is happening here? The nobles quickly bowed. We were only warning the human. Princess, for his own safety. Liara's gaze turned cold. Do not mistake your fear for protection. If the human has my trust, then he has no need for your threats. The nobles stiffened but said nothing more. With a flick of her hand, Liara motioned for Elias to follow her. Together, they left the chamber. As they walked down the corridor, Liara glanced at him. You should be careful. They will not stop so easily. Elias nodded. I know, but I will not change who I am. If they fear me for speaking the truth, then so be it. Liara looked at him with quiet admiration. She realized then that he was unlike anyone she had ever met. He did not seek power, nor did he tremble before it. He simply stood as he was, honest, steady, unshaken. And though she would never admit it aloud, part of her heart began to wish she could do the same. That night, Liara sat alone in her chambers. She thought of the nobles, of their fear, of their warnings. She thought of Elias, standing calmly before them, unafraid. Her people had always believed that strength was found in control, in order, in never bending. But the human had shown her a different kind of strength, the strength to stand firm even in the face of disapproval, the strength to be honest even when it was dangerous. And slowly, she began to wonder, which was stronger, the unchanging stone of her people or the unyielding fire of the humans? The question lingered as the moons rose high above Aurelia, and in the shadows of the palace, the conflict that had only begun was preparing to burn brighter than ever. The royal flagship of Aurelia was a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever built. Its long crystal hull shimmered with pale light as it drifted across the silent void. Towers of silver rose from its back like the spires of a cathedral, and vast energy wings glowed faintly as they absorbed power from the nearest star. Inside, the ship was filled with elegance. Halls of polished crystal stretched endlessly. There, walls alive with soft energy veins that pulsed like blood through a body. For the Aurelians, space travel was not just a necessity, it was an art. Every ship was both weapon and palace. Princess Liara stood on the command bridge, her eyes gazing out at the endless stars. It was her first diplomatic voyage without her father. The king had entrusted her to lead a small delegation to a nearby star system, accompanied by noble advisors and the human envoy, Captain Elias Morgan. Liara could still feel the weight of her father's words before departure. This journey is a test. You will show the galaxy that you are ready to stand as more than a daughter. You will prove that you can lead. She carried those words in her heart, but also something else, an unspoken curiosity about the human who now stood at her side. Elias observed the bridge quietly, his eyes tracing the alien designs. The Aurelians moved with grace, each officer working in silence as if every motion were part of a dance. He admired their discipline, yet he also noticed something troubling. Their movements, though elegant, lacked urgency. Their calmness bordered on complacency. He leaned closer to Liara and whispered, "Your crew is skilled, Princess, but do they know how to respond if danger comes suddenly?" Liara frowned. "They are trained for war, Captain. Aurelians do not fear conflict." Elias nodded slowly. "Training and reality are not always the same. I hope they never have to learn that lesson the hard way." His words lingered in her mind. For 2 days the journey was calm. The ship glided smoothly between the stars, its shields shimmering faintly against cosmic winds. Liara spent much of her time speaking with Elias, asking about human strategies, their history of exploration, their struggles and victories. She found herself comparing her people to his. The Aurelians were steady, unchanging. Humans were restless, always moving. Farwa! The royal flagship glided through the void, battered but unbroken. The battle with the raiders had left scorch marks along the crystal hull, and alarms still hummed faintly in warning. Yet the crew moved with renewed determination, each officer aware of what had been possible when courage met leadership. Princess Liara stood at the command bridge, her hands resting lightly on the rail. Her eyes scanned the starfield, but her mind replayed every moment of the fight. Her people had fought well, but it had been the human, Captain Elias Morgan, who had turned fear into action, who had reminded them that survival was not about perfection. It was about courage. She had watched him move through the corridors, fearless and relentless. He had taken risks no Aurelian would dare, yet somehow he had always come out unscathed. His presence inspired strength not just in her, but in everyone who had witnessed it. The calm of the aftermath did not last. The alarms blared anew, louder and more urgent. The ship shook violently. "Unidentified vessels approaching," a young officer shouted. Liara's eyes widened. From the shadow of the nearby nebula, 3 sleek ships emerged, faster and more menacing than the previous attackers. Their weapons glowed with a deep red, pulsating rhythmically like the heartbeat of a predator. "They're back," one of the Aurelian officers muttered. "More raiders." Elias appeared beside Liara, calm as ever. "This is no ordinary attack," he said. "They're organized, coordinated. They want something, or someone. Liara's heart sank. She knew who they wanted. My presence? She whispered. Elias's eyes met hers. Yes, they want you. And if you fall, they will not stop until every officer aboard this ship is destroyed. The 3 raider ships advanced with terrifying speed. The flagship's shields flared as the first blast struck. Sparks danced along the crystal walls and the deck shook with every hit. Prepare for combat, Liara shouted. Divert all power to shields and weapons. The crew sprang into action, moving with skill, though tension ran high. But Elias noticed the hesitation beneath their trained movements. Their fear was subtle, almost invisible, but it slowed them just enough to risk disaster. He stepped forward, voice loud and commanding. Listen to me. We will not surrender. Not now, not ever. Follow my instructions and trust your instincts. Liara felt a surge of confidence in his words. His calm authority radiated across the bridge, filling her and the crew with courage. The first raider ship rammed into the flagship's side, its claws tearing deep into the crystal hull. Crew members fell as the impact sent them sprawling, but Elias remained steady, issuing orders. Fire at the engines, he shouted. Target their propulsion systems, then force them apart. The Aurelian weapons fired with renewed precision. Energy beams struck the raiders, causing one ship to spiral out of control. Another crashed into the debris of its fallen companion, exploding in a bright flash. But the largest raider ship remained, circling and waiting, patient and relentless, its weapons locked onto the flagship's core. Princess, they're trying to board, Elias warned. Liara's eyes widened. We cannot let them. I know, Elias interrupted, and we won't. Stand firm. The boarding was swift and deadly. Red-suited raiders poured into the hull, their weapons cutting through walls and doors. The Aurelian guards fought bravely, but the raiders were trained for chaos and brutality. Elias grabbed a fallen energy weapon and charged into the corridor. His movements were precise, controlled, and deadly. Each step, each strike rallied the guards behind him. Push them back, he shouted. Do not let them reach the princess. The battle raged through the ship, sparks and flames flying as crystal walls cracked under fire. Elias moved like a force of nature, fearless and unyielding. Guards followed him, inspired by his courage, holding the line against overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, Liara remained on the bridge. She could hear the distant sounds of battle through the ship's communication channels, her heart pounding. Her hands gripped the command rail. She had always known humans were brave, but she had never seen courage like this. Calm, precise, and unbreakable. And now it was clear. He would not surrender. Not her, not the ship, not the crew. Her chest tightened as she whispered softly, almost to herself, he will not falter even if the stars fall around him. Down in the corridors, the battle reached its peak. A raider lunged at Elias from the side, swinging a sharp weapon. Elias dodged, countered, and struck with controlled force. The raider fell back, disarmed and stunned. Another charged from behind, aiming for a guard. Elias twisted and caught the attack, throwing the raider into the wall with calculated strength. Hold the line, he shouted again. Stand together, or you fall separately. His voice was like fire. Guards who had been uncertain now fought, with skill and determination, inspired by the human captain who refused to yield. The largest raider ship tried to breach the bridge itself. Liara's heart raced as the enemy ship's weapons fired in deadly arcs. Shields flared, absorbing the hits, but the crystal walls groaned under the strain. Elias appeared at her side, uninvited but calm. Princess, your shields will hold, but only if you keep firing. Do not falter. Liara nodded, her hands flying over the controls. Energy beams lanced out, striking the raider ship's hull and forcing it to maneuver. Now, Captain, she said, her voice steady. Tell me what to do next. Elias scanned the star map quickly. We need to create a trap. Draw them toward the asteroid field ahead. They will not expect it. Liara's mind raced. It is risky. They could fire before we reach it. Elias met her gaze. If we do nothing, they win. Take the risk. Trust your instincts. Trust your crew. For the first time, Liara realized the truth of his gaze. the depth she had felt from the very first meeting. It was not just observation. It was trust, confidence, belief in her ability to act even under pressure. The flagship maneuvered toward the asteroid field, engines straining as the raider ship pursued. Energy beams and explosions lit the void as the chase continued. The human captain barked orders, guiding the Aurelian crew with unmatched skill. "Focus fire," he shouted. "Use the rocks for cover. Force them to crash into each other." One by one, the raider ship's weapons were neutralized. Its movements grew desperate, erratic. With a final burst of precision from Liara's control and Elias's guidance, the raider ship struck an asteroid, shattering in a brilliant flash. The remaining enemy ships fled, retreating into the darkness of space. The bridge erupted in cheers, the crew laughing and crying in relief. Liara's hands shook, but a smile crossed her face. Elias stood quietly, surveying the aftermath, as calm and composed as ever. "You saved us," Liara whispered. "No," Elias said softly. "We saved ourselves. I only reminded your people what they were capable of." Her chest swelled with admiration. He had risked everything to ensure her safety, and yet he spoke as if he had done nothing extraordinary. That night, Liara stood once more on her balcony, the stars of Aurelia shining brilliantly above. Her mind replayed every moment of the battle, the fear, the courage, the trust she had felt in Elias's eyes. She whispered into the night, "Why do you look at me so deeply, human? Perhaps because you see strength where I had not seen it, in myself." And in the quiet of the void, she understood something essential. Humanity was not merely strong in body or weapon. It was strong in spirit. And that spirit had just saved her life. The aftermath of the battle was quiet but charged with energy. The royal flagship, though scarred, moved steadily through the void. Repairs would take time, but for the Aurelians, this was a minor concern compared to what they had just experienced. Princess Liara walked along the corridors, observing the crew as they worked tirelessly. Sparks flew from repair stations, energy hums filled the air, and the crystal walls reflected the faint blue light from the engines. Everywhere she looked, she saw courage and determination, qualities that had been awakened by one human captain. Elias Morgan moved alongside her, calm as ever, offering guidance where needed but never taking over. He had fought alongside the crew, saved lives, and ensured their survival. And yet, he did so without claiming glory, as if it were all simply duty. Liara's eyes followed him, her thoughts running deep. She realized that humanity was not just a collection of brave individuals. It was a living, breathing example of resilience, of hope, and of courage. And she had seen that courage reflected most clearly in Elias. The first day after the battle was spent in silent repairs, but the second day brought conversation. Liara and Elias found themselves alone on the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. The nebula from which the raiders had emerged still glowed faintly, a reminder of the danger they had survived. "You were incredible," Liara said softly, her eyes following the distant streaks of cosmic light. Elias shook his head. "No, the crew was incredible. I only reminded them what they were capable of." She turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Even so, you risked yourself to save us." "I did what I had to do," he replied simply. "That's all any human or any leader can do." Her gaze lingered on him. For months she had observed him. His calm steadiness, his refusal to be swayed by fear, his honesty, qualities, rare even among her people. And now she understood why she had felt drawn to him from the very first meeting. "You see more than most," she said softly. "You see courage where others might see doubt. You see truth where others see only titles." Elias's gaze met hers. There was no arrogance, no pride, only quiet onus.